Hey, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are back with another show. Matt, we have Kentucky Derby preps, Kentucky Oaks preps, even Preakness preps here on Horse Center this week.
It's a big racing weekend, Brian. The Derby Trail is transitioning from 10-pointers to 50-pointers. Enjoy the show.
Risen Star, Rachel Alexandra, Mineshaft, El Camino Real Derby, Southwest previewed, all here on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Happy Valentine's Day to all of the Horse Center fans.
Yes, indeed. Happy Valentine's Day. A happy day indeed, Matt. You know, a lot of our female viewers have told me that I'm a bit of a sex symbol here on Horse Center, so gotta shout out to the women who watch Horse Center every week. Happy Valentine's Day. All right, we won't talk about that anymore. Brian. I didn't hear you, Matt.
That's the fillies and mares, right? You're talking about
something like that. Hey, Matt, we got a lot of previews to do. Let's jump right in. Okay, enough with this silliness. Matt, Fairgrounds has a really nice card on Saturday, and it's headed by the Risen Star. 15 entered Kingly from the Bob Baffert barn. It's not making the trip out to Louisiana, so we got 14. Gunnet got into the 14-hole, Matt. That also means War of Will moves over one spot to the 13-hole. Big winner, the LeCompte, Matt, but the 13-hole is not a great spot for the Risen Star.
Yeah, Brian, it sure is not. And looking at this race, the Risen Star, of course, it's the first of the 50-point races on the Derby Trail, getting mixed in with the last two 10-point races this weekend. Yeah, Brian, when I looked at the PPs for the Risen Star, knowing that War of the Will drew on the far outside, it was pretty hard to eliminate very many horses as contenders in here.
Yeah, Matt, for me, War of Will was so good in that LeCompte. I mean, every single thing I saw in that race from the Mark Cassidy trained colt, I liked. The way he just tore down the stretch away from his competition was super impressive. 2 for 2 now on dirt. Remember, he was a nice turf horse as a 2-year-old, got a sloppy track, won easy, and then the LeCompte. I think it's all about War of Will. If he can work out a good trip under Tyler Gaffleone and just kind of repeat what he did in the LeCompte, I think he's clearly the horse to beat. I really like him. He'll be the favorite this time, and that 13-hole gives anybody wanting to try to beat him reason to think it's doable this time around. And yeah, Matt, there's a slew of contenders, many of them coming out of that LeCompte. Of course, Hog Creek Hustle for Vicky Foley was second. Manny Waugh keeps trying to break through. He was third. Maybe the most interesting horse coming out of the LeCompte behind War of Will, though, for me was Plus K Parfait, who made his return race there and had some trouble. It was not a great trip, and he ambled up for fifth that day. I think he might be an interesting horse here in the Risen Star, but to tell you the truth, I don't like his post either, breaking from the rail.
Yes, Brian, I certainly agree with that, and I was going to interject earlier. Even though War of Will is on the far outside, I think I prefer that spot to being on the rail because there's going to be a crush when this field comes out of the gate, and Plus K Parfait could find himself in a tough position there, and I do agree with what you said about War of Will. He was so impressive, and he so smartly and quickly got into such good position in LeCompte. He was breaking from the middle of the field in the 7-hole there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he could get out of the gate quickly, and because he is on the far outside, be able to kind of swoop by and get in a good position again. Maybe not quite so close immediately, but he's a good horse. But back to Plus K Parfait, he had a tough trip in the LeCompte and rallied and got the fifth. And remembering back to last year, he was second in the Kentucky Jockey Club to Signalman, a horse that both you and I like a lot. So there is plenty to like about Plus K Parfait, except that one hole.
If he can work out a good trip. All right, Matt, we talked about several from the Lecomte. Chase the Ghost also gets another try for trainer Dallas Stewart. Royland's back. Both of them can improve. But let's talk about some of the other horses that weren't in the Lecomte, because there's a slew of them here also, Matt, and several of them certainly can make their presence known on Saturday here. Let's start with Mr. Money, son of Golden Sense, who ran a very good Breeders' Cup. He was supposed to be in the Lecomte, actually, but had a cough. So Brett Calhoun, a new winner of 3,000 career races, Brett Calhoun, brings Mr. Money right back in here. And Matt, we thought he was a threat in the Lecomte. We might as well think he's a threat here in the Risen Star.
Yeah, I think he is. Certainly, this is a very tough spot to come back and make your 2019 debut in. But Morning Line says 12-1. It is Brett Calhoun. And remember back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he had a pretty bad start in that race and rallied to finish fourth in a race where horses are coming back and doing good things. But again, it is a tough spot to return in, but I like the odds.
Yeah, 12-1 makes me think Mr. Money is very playable in here. Another horse who people might jump on is the Mike Maker. Mike Maker's got a couple in here. One is Dump, who's not out of this race either, but the other one is Henley's Joy, Matt, and Henley's Joy is really proven to be a nice turf horse, a son of Kitten's Joy. Mike Maker must feel like he can get the dirt, because he'll be making his first career start on dirt, an angle that's been better than ever of late, bringing turf horses to big dirt races. And Henley's Joy could pop up in here, and another who probably will have some decent odds.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you mentioned Dump earlier. That's 20-1 on the Morning Line, who ran third in the Springboard Mile, is most likely from that outside post position that he drew. He's going to probably get hustled out of the gate and help to ensure that there's an honest pace.
That's right. And with all these horses, that should be a pretty honest pace, although there's no real speedball in here, Matt. Speaking of 21 on the Morning Line, I don't think he will end up at 20-1, but Bill Mott has an interesting horse named Country House, who really has looked good in his last two races, and he's coming off a nice maiden win over Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, and of course, Country House is a son of Looking at Lucky. And these Bill Mott horses are all quickly becoming buzz horses. And like you said, I'm really doubtful that we'll get 20-1 on Country House.
Yeah, and Country House looks like he'll need a little speed. He looks like a late runner so far early in his career. But horses that'll be closer to the pace in this big field, Matt, we have to start talking about Owendale. Owendale will be making his stakes debut in here, but the son of Into Mischief really looked good at Fairgrounds already this year, including his last one, which was his best one yet, where he beat a nice allowance field. He's got some speed to him, and I think he's a real threat in here, maybe the biggest threat to War of Will. Yeah,
he's making a big step up in class here from that allowance win, but it is Brad Cox, and he knows how to place his horses really well. 8-1 on the Morning Line. I don't know. That sounds about right, and certainly a horse that could make that next move up in class.
Yeah, Matt, I think he can, and I will take a little issue with the big jump up in class, because I think that allowance race wasn't far off what he'll find here in the Risen Star. So Owendale is definitely a horse I like, and if he's 8-1 for Brad Cox, certainly a horse I will have on my tickets. Two horses he beat in the race, Matt. Frolic Moore was second. Comes back and could improve a little bit, and then I believe it was a $2.6 million purchase. Gunnett gets another shot after running third last time to Owendale.
Yeah, $2.6 million. All that did was buy him a far outside post here for this son of Tappet. Going to be a tall task.
Yeah, I agree, especially with that post out in 14. All right, so for me, it's War of Will. If he runs his best, I think he wins this. But Owendale is the horse that I'm looking if anybody can pull the upset for here in the Risen Star. How about you, Matt?
I feel the same way about War of Will, but my other horse is going to be Mr. Money.
Mr. Money returning for Brett Calhoun. Good. And hey, Matt, the Risen Star is just one of several graded stakes on the card. There's a nice turf race, the Fairgrounds Handicap. But of course, one of the ones we're really watching with an eye on the Kentucky Oaks, especially, is the Rachel Alexandra. Good horses have won this race in recent years, Matt, and they drew a nice field. Chasing Yesterday was the early morning line favorite, but she is also not making the trip. Still, I think we have a nice field, and if you pick one out here, I think you're going to have some decent odds. I'm guessing maybe Needs Supervision, the daughter of Painter, who's won 3 in a row, including the local Silver Bullet Day, might go off the favorite, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, Brian, again, I was a little surprised when I saw Chasing Yesterday in the entries for the Rachel Alexandra, and I guess for good reason, since Baffert has decided not to make the trip out with that one. We talked about a few of these horses in our HorseCenter show last week with the Kentucky Oaks Top 10. A lot of you watched. Thank you for watching our show about the fillies.
Absolutely. What do you think it Needs Supervision, Matt? Or Silver Bullet Day, I think this is a little tougher field. She'll face a couple in here and horses that shouldn't be ignored either. Eris 2 and was a long shot that was second. And Leora faded a little bit, but I think she could improve. I guess she was 4th in that Silver Bullet Day. But are you a big believer of Needs Supervision as the local horse coming in here?
Yeah, I like Needs Supervision is one of 2 that I especially like in here. The horse is certainly on a roll. A new name, on the scene, Jeremiah O'Dwyer, seems to be doing good things with that. So I certainly like Needs Supervision in there. And I also like Positive Spirit a bit for Rudolph Brissett, who was a big winner at Aqueduct in the Demoiselle by 10 lengths in there off the pace. So I'm interested in Positive Spirit also.
Yeah, Positive Spirit. I guess if Needs Supervision is not the favorite, it'll probably go to Positive Spirit. Positive Spirit was actually the highest ranked we had for our Kentucky Oaks rankings of the horses in here. But, there's a bunch in here that made the list, and there's 1 or 2 others that I think could be good that were just outside this top 10. So it's a nice competitive field. I, too, like Positive Spirit. I'm a little leery about coming from Aqueduct after a few months off. I don't know if she'll be at her absolute best, but the daughter of Pioneer the Nile was getting better and better last fall for Rudolph Brissett, and I think she might be the horse with the most upside out of anyone in this race. I actually like her better than Needs Supervision in here. We also need to talk about Serengeti Empress, Matt. She's locally trained for Tom Amos, and she was a very good 2-year-old, winning that Ellis Park debutante and then the Pocahontas for absolute fun. She didn't run her best in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, but she's been training at Fairgrounds, and I think she too is a serious threat in here.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see her come back and see if we see that runaway winner again, or see her as a different kind of horse this year. So that'll be interesting to see. I also like the 6-horse Oxy Lady a little bit. I find interesting for trainer Jack Sisterston, who is gone out on his own recently. Last year was 4th in the Starlet in a pretty good field and won the Tempted in New York by 5. So I find that horse interesting. Maybe one also that has some upside.
Absolutely, Matt. We finally touched on my top pick in here. Oxy Lady is my top pick in the Rachel Alexandra. She should be the 4th choice. She's 4th choice of the morning line. Again, I think it's kind of a wide open field, so I'm not sure what that 4th choice will get you, but 6-1, 5-1 might be about right. The daughter of Oxbow, again, was like a few others in here, got better as she moved on last year. And Sisterson thought enough of her after that nice win and attempted to bring her out west. And she didn't run a bad race at all behind Chasing Yesterday out in the Starlet at Los Alamitos. I like Oxy Lady in here. She's got nice stalking style that I think will fit. And the fact that she ran a little bit more recent than a couple of them, Positive Spirit and Serengeti Empress, for example, when she was out there in California, makes me like her a little bit more. I think she might be sitting on a good race and ready to run. So I'm going to go with her, especially if she's the fourth choice in here, Matt. A few others that could pop up, though. Malta Bella, I don't know if she wants 2 turns as a mile 16th race like the Risen Star, but she's coming off a real nice win at 7 furlongs in the Gasparilla at Tampa Bay Downs. And then you got Bell's the One, another one stepping up from sprinting, but she's 3 for 3.
Yeah, 3 for 3, and Steve Asmussen has one in there. Eris 2, who was 12 to 1 in the old morning line with Chasing Yesterday still in the field, ran second in the Silver Bullet Day, and had a pretty rough trip in that race. So there's another one that could pop one.
Yeah, Eris 2 was a bomb that day in the Silver Bullet Day. She'll get more respect, but I think again she'll be double digits in here. So if you like that race, she ran rallying for second behind Needs Supervision, another one to think of. I'm going Oxy Lady, Matt. Who's your top pick?
I'm going to go Needs Supervision, but I certainly like, as I mentioned, Oxy Lady and Positive Spirit. So using them in the exactas.
Should be a fun Rachel Alexandra. Now, one other race I wanted to talk a little bit about here on HorseCenter this week at Fairgrounds is the Mineshaft, also mile 16th on the main track there at Fairgrounds. We thought we were going to get 3 Triple Crown veterans, but we just found out that Quip is going to run in Florida, I think, a week out now. So he did not make the trip. So we still have Lone Sailor, who was last seen in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and Flame Away, who's been away for 6 months, but we remember him on the Kentucky Derby Trail last year, both coming back in the Mineshaft on Saturday.
Yeah, Flame Away. We remember for Mark Cassie running in so many of those races and always being competitive and always contending in there. Cassie doesn't duck any battles, as we saw in the Risen Star, leaving War of Will in there, as opposed to Brissett, who scratched out Quip because Quip drew far on the outside.
Yeah, we'll miss Quip, but Flame Away and Lone Sailor are interesting in their own right. Flame Away, I think, is like, even though he's been away for about 6 months, I think he is likely to run a good race. He ran mostly good races at 2 and 3. He's a stakes winner at both 2 and 3. Won the Sam F. Davis last year. Matt, I believe he was second in the Bluegrass, the Tampa Bay Derby, and the Jim Dandy last year. So a lot of good performances, and he's got speed. So look for Flame Away to come out running. I'm not sure how much they're going to bet him. I think the Tom Amos local horse for GMB Racing, Lone Sailor, will be the favorite. Just a gorgeous son of majestic perfection. Lone Sailor ran a lot of good races last year. Ran all over the country. He didn't really break through in too many, but a lot of good races. And even the Breeders' Cup Classic, his last race, he had a trouble trip, 6th, beaten 5.5 lengths. So he showed up that day. Beaten a photo when it looked like he might win the Louisiana Derby when last seen at the Fairgrounds. Just missed in the Ohio Derby. Finally, he got the win at the Oklahoma Derby. If he's ready to roll, he might be the class of the race.
Yeah, if they're ready to roll is the key word with Lone Sailor and Flame Away. If they're both ready to roll, it seems like it's a race between those two, but it's not an easy task, and one of those local horses could be an upsetter.
Absolutely, and folks, it's not always true. It really does depend on the horse, but generally when you have horses coming off of layoffs, I tend to like horses with a little speed a little better than horses who don't have a lot of speed. So Flame Away has more speed than Lone Sailor, and that might help him in his return to the races. Lone Sailor, 1.25 miles, and he hasn't run for over 3 months. It might be a race, a tightener for Lone Sailor. Having said that, he's working very well down at the Fairgrounds. We need to mention the horses that came out of the Louisiana Stakes last time. Harlan Punch is a nice 6-year-old who won the race. Silver Dust, when he's on, he can be a dangerous horse. And Fat Man was third in that race, Matt. Maybe because of the return factor of the 2 Triple Crown veterans we talked about, Harlan Punch could be the horse to beat in here.
Yeah, could be, but you know what? I really expect Flame Away to get a piece of the finish and hit the board.
All right, good. Nothing wrong with rooting for Flame Away and expecting a good performance from him down in Louisiana. Anyway, it should be a good day of racing at Fairgrounds on Saturday, Matt. We're going to shift gears, though, from the Big Easy of New Orleans all the way out to another wonderful city outside of San Francisco. I'm talking about Golden Gate Fields. We have the El Camino Real Derby, Matt, and you might have to go back a few years, but there's been some good horses who have won this race over the years. I remember a horse called Badgerland way back when. But anyway, it drew a big field on a synthetic surface as Golden Gate Fields, and there's at least a few interesting ones in here. Last year, Matt, there was a filly who won the race, a nice turf filly named Paved. So it's kind of a surface where you could win as a dirt horse or a turf horse. Who do you like in the El Camino Real Derby?
Well, before I get to that, I would certainly I want to note that it was sort of surprising to see a 13-horse field in the El Camino Real Derby, but I think a good bit of that came because in addition to there being Derby points, the winner of the El Camino Real Derby is getting a guaranteed spot and a paid spot in the Preakness. So an interesting wrinkle there. I guess that's a Stronach thing going on with that enticement. So big field in there. And back to who I like. You know, when I went through the field, I identified 5 or 6 horses that I thought were contenders, but I'm going to land on the 7-horse Eagle Song, Brian, who came from Europe, from the barn of Joseph O'Brien. And in Europe, this horse had 2 nice wins on the synthetic track at Dundalk and has come to the barn of Mark Glatt and has been running on the turf. That's what is interesting and makes handicapping this race difficult, because we got horses coming from the dirt, coming from the turf, and coming from the synthetic, whether it's over in Europe like Eagle Song or on the track at Golden Gate Field. So Eagle Song is my pick.
Yeah, Eagle Song is a good pick, man. I think he's got a real shot in here as well, and good handicapping, picking out that Dundalk form that some may miss. If he does in fact win, Matt, I think you're going to be rewarded with a nice payoff in here, because I think they're going to bet a few other horses, namely Kingly. Now we're assuming Kingly, who's a full brother to Mahayman, and only run 2 times for trainer Bob Baffert, will make the trip. Remember, he was entered in the Risen Star. Now he's entered in this. Last I've heard, we expect Kingly up in Northern California for this one. Baffert's got to start spreading his horses out. So this makes sense for a horse who's bred to take to a synthetic surface. He's a little bit on the outside, Matt, but I'm sure he'll be the favorite. Won a maiden nicely, and then was second in the slop in a good allowance race. Certainly could win this, but if he's a clear choice in here, maybe a bet against.
Yeah, I think he is definitely a bet against, as the Baffert name is going to make this horse favorite for sure. And I found this a curious move and by Baffert entering the horse here. I don't know, maybe it was the enticement of the spot in the Preakness and the chance of having another horse in there to help Baffert put another notch in his Triple Crown race belt. But I don't know, not as the favorite in here. His resume at this point is pretty limited. There are others in there. That I like Doug O'Neill has the 5-horse, the Creep, in there. An interesting name. Son of Twirling Candy has won on all 3 surfaces already. Dirt, Brian, turf, and synthetic. A versatile type. Was second in the Gold Rush, which is a prep race at Golden Gate Fields for for this spot.
Yeah, I think he might be a cut below, but certainly the Creep is an interesting horse, and Doug O'Neill has pulled off some surprises up Northern California before. Matt, is it too early to call this a Preakness prep? I don't know. I guess we do it for the Derby. Why not the Preakness? Anyway, a couple that haven't been mentioned yet that I think need to be, Matt. King of Speed did not necessarily look great in his last two, but if you look at his turf form, it's really good. He's a two-time stakes winner, in fact, down south against good horses down there. So King of Speed, Jeff Bondy, of course, won a Derby prep this past weekend. Jeff Bondy's got King of Speed in here. I think he'll bounce back off of those two off-the-board finishes against really good horses, and he's a danger here. But I think the horse I like the very best, Matt, we haven't mentioned yet, is Another Twist of Fate. Scat Daddy certainly can handle a synthetic surface. He's the local horse. I'm hoping he drops down to third choice or something in here, but a lot of speed, and he's really looked good over this Golden Gate surface in his last two, just winning for fun, both of those races. I think he could pull it off again and let all those turf horses try to chase him down the stretch. But Another Twist of Fate is very interesting to me in here.
Yeah, he was on my list of contenders for sure with the 2 wins in a row. Both of them were on the lead, wire to wire, relatively an inside post. So you know this horse is going and is going to run and see if he can get caught. There's another local horse on the far outside, Mayor Cobb, who ran third in that Gold Rush and won starter allowance at Golden Gate Field for local trainer Jonathan Wong, who's just winning everything up there at the San Francisco track.
That's true. One of the things I do like about Another Twist of Fate against that horse, and maybe the Creep too, is if you look at the speed ratings out of both his maiden and allowance win, they kind of stand over anything else that's run at Golden Gate Fields as 3-year-olds this year, including that Gold Rush, which was late last year. All right, Matt, that's the El Camino Real Derby on Saturday. We're also going to look at the Holiday Monday. We don't have the Southwest drawn yet, but we have a good idea who's going to go in there, Matt, at Oaklawn Park on Monday. And it'll certainly be led by the streaking Gray Attempt. Now, Gray Attempt won the Smarty Jones at Oaklawn Park last time for his second straight stakes win. He's got good speed, but there's a host of horses coming out of that Smarty Jones who want to take another shot at Gray Attempt.
Yeah, Brian, and they're drawing this Southwest field on Friday, tomorrow. It's looking to be maybe a little bit of a smaller field than the Risen Star and the El Camino Real. Gray Attempt has been racing on the lead, has won 3 races in a row. The Smarty Jones, the Sugar Bowl. His running style fits this short stretch at Oaklawn Park really, really well. But it isn't going to be easy. We got Steve Asmussen is bringing back long-range Toddy in there. He's got 14 Derby points already. Won the Springboard Mile. Was second in the Smarty Jones. He was closing. He was closing the gap on Gray Attempt in there and fell just the neck short. So long-range Toddy is going to be tough in there. There's also coming from California is Sueno, is how I assume that you pronounce it, from the barn of Keith DeSormo. Interestingly, the horse won that Gold Rush that we talked about, and DeSormo opted to not run back on the synthetic, to go to Oaklawn Park. He was also second in the Sham, besides Gunmetal. He's got a nice stalking style. I found it interesting that DeSormo made that move, making me think that he's serious about this horse on the Derby Trail.
Yeah, absolutely. Sueno has a big shot in here, Matt. He's one of the new shooters, if you will, down at Oaklawn Park because of all those horses coming out of the Smarty Jones. Long Range Toddy, you mentioned, I like the race he ran up the rail that day. Although great attempt, I'm not sure if he was ever going to get by Gray Attempt, but he was moving up the rail, and that's sometimes hard for horses to do. Certainly Long Range Toddy, the son of Take Charge Indy, is getting better and better for Steve Asmussen. Asmussen looks to be sending 4 in here, Matt. He's also got a horse that I think you have to at least consider, and that's Bankit, who was the favorite in the Southwest. I'm sorry, it's the favorite in the Smarty Jones, but didn't run much that day. Maybe he can bounce back. 6 Shooter is coming back. Also, Boulder ran a good race in the Smarty Jones and was 3rd, but beaten only about a half length. So a bunch of horses coming from there. Sueno, yeah, the Gold Rush was nice, but I think even better than that was the Sham Performance, where he was second to Gunmetal Gray. We know Gunmetal Gray is a nice horse. Pletcher might send in Cutting Humor, who ran a couple good races down in Florida recently. Mark Cassie's got another horse who won nicely in the slop. First time on dirt, and that sounds familiar. It sounds just like War of Will. So Olympic Runner from the Cassie barn should be a horse to watch out for in here. And another and a horse I think might be the biggest threat, Matt, to Gray Attempt is also from that Asmussen barn. Asmussen expecting 4 in here, and that's Jersey Agenda. And Jersey Agenda really is an up-and-comer. He's won 2 in a row, hasn't been in a stakes race yet, Matt, but I like what he did in his last 2. So definitely Gray Attempt deserves to be the favorite off his 2 straight stakes wins, including last time at Oaklawn Park. But Sueno, the one you talked about, Jersey Agenda, maybe Olympic Runner. There's several horses in here who could pop up and kind of upset the local apple cart.
Yeah, Brian, it's going to be an interesting field. And of course, folks, as we said, they're drawing the field tomorrow, and we'll see who's definitely in. I'm going to stick with Sueno as my possible upsetter in here, although certainly they're going to have to beat Gray Attempt.
Yeah, I liked Gray Attempt in the Smarty Jones. I'm going to stick with them as a lukewarm favorite in here, but long-range Toddy, Sueno, Matt's horse, and Jersey Agenda, I think this is a very wide-open race. So look at the odds a little bit and go with it there. All right, Matt, that's our show. Another show on the books, our Valentine's Day special show here on Horse Racing Nation. 3 Kentucky Derby preps, or maybe one of them is a Preakness prep, I'm not sure. A Kentucky Oaks prep, and then we got some Triple Crown veterans returning in the Mineshaft. Should be a fun, long holiday weekend. Hey, Matt, before we go, can I get a parting shot from you?
Hey, lots of great racing this weekend. Enjoy it, HorseCenter fans. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Thanks to Brett. Thanks to our great sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. And thank you, fans, for tuning in every week. Matt and I joke around a little bit, but we certainly do love and appreciate that you tune in every week. If you haven't yet hit that subscribe button here at Horse Racing Nation, please do so. We will see you next week back on the Kentucky Derby Trail right here on HorseCenter.